Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Mukesh Parik, and I welcome you all to my YouTube channel. In this series of psychoanalytic criticism, today I'll be talking about feminist approaches of psychoanalytic criticism, and I'll also be talking about another important critic, Harold Bloom, and his concept of the anxiety of influence. I always maintain that these videos are especially meant for the students of English literature who are preparing for NET and JRF, and I could have made a very small video with editing also, but I decided to go live so that I can answer the direct questions of my students also. So let us begin. First of all, let me talk about that. What are the basic postulations of feminist psychoanalytic criticism? As such, you all know that feminism is a different term, and feminist literary criticism is a different term. What students of literature are concerned with is the literary interpretation in the feminine from the feminist point of view. And we all know that what feminism stands for. Feminism stands for the rights of women. And today we know that there are more than 10 or say 12 kind of feminisms around us. There is black feminism, there is white feminism, there is Afro-American feminism, there is womanism, there is post-structuralist feminism. So there are so many feminisms, they have overcome the basic postulations of the rights of a woman. But here, let me restrict myself to the ideas of feminism, which with the basic postulations of feminism, when these ideas are applied to the study of psychology. Because we all know that Freud started doing psychoanalysis as per literature is concerned, though we cannot say exactly, but we also know that Sigmund Freud incorporated the things of literature in framing his terminology. Then during the past three lectures, we also came to know that there are other writers also, and they all have somewhere to deal with literature. Now, if I talk about feminist literary criticism, and to try to be very brief in this lecture, I will be asking you to just pay attention to certain things, that whether it is Freud or it is Lacan or it is Jung or the other psychoanalysts, they paid more attention to male and the male sexual organ. But these feminists, they consider and they present a critique to their male-centric or say patriarchal ideas, while they consider only the sexuality of males, and with that sexuality and the psychology of a from a male angle. So the basic things, if you Google and search for this feminist psychoanalytic criticism, you will find a variety of ideas over there. But as per the students of English literature, NET and JRF are concerned, I would like to say about two or three things. First of all, that we should be aware about Kate Millett's book, as the title of the book suggests, that the sexual politics. It means 1969, and here in this book, writer says that the angle from which Sigmund Freud and Lacan have considered the postulations of, or the constitution of the psyche of a human being is totally male. And in the modernist period, when writers wrote under the influence of psychology, they all created only the male versions. For example, and when they write from the male version, when they write or they create characters from the male standpoint, they always underestimate the characters of the women characters in their novels, in their creations. So in the sexual politics, this book is important for you, And in this book, she has challenged this whole idea of arranging in such a manner where the justice has not been meted out to the female or say the women characters in the novels. The project of war. Then let me also talk about Simone de Beauvoir, the matriarch, who wrote that book, The Second Sex, in which, hello Manisha, hello Suman. The Second Sex, the first version of the book, the first part came into 1949, and in the second part of this book, there comes a sentence which is world famous, that a woman is not born, a woman is made. Socially, it's a social construct. So, in feminist psychoanalysis, we study how female is constructed, how female. As per psychology is concerned, I can use the word female, but mostly I stop myself, I restrain myself, using this word female because I prefer woman more. But Americans are, they tend to use this word female interchangeably to woman. Shivani, hello, beta, how are you? Today I'm discussing feminist criticism in the light of psychoanalysis. So I'll be talking about, I have already talked about two writers, Kate Millett's book, Sexual Politics, and the second book I talked about, the Second Sex, written by Simone de Beauvoir. And then the third, these are two writers, Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar. These two writers are also talking about the social castration, the Mad Woman in the Attic. That book they have written. There are so many volumes of this book, and their interpretation is also somewhere linked with the psychology, and they are questioning the psychology. So those who are attending this session first time, hello Manoj Kumarji, good evening. That those who want to understand that what is psychoanalysis from feminist point of view, they should simply understand that, as we know, that feminism is concerned with the rights of women, and as you all know, you should watch the videos I have uploaded. And from tomorrow, I'll be discussing feminism also again. I'll be talking, I think in 4 or 5 sessions, I'll be discussing feminist literary criticism. But for this introductory part, you can go to my videos already uploaded on my YouTube channel and see the different waves, because in that introductory video, I have discussed the different waves: first wave of feminism, second wave of feminism, third wave of feminism, fourth wave of feminism, fifth wave of feminism. So this is not the class for feminism. This is a class meant especially scheduled for psychoanalytic criticism from the feminist point of view. So Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar, these two writers, they have also written from that angle, that what are the social conditions which make a woman don't raise her voice either, or what are the social conditions which make a woman loser. Because earlier I said that Simone de Beauvoir said that a woman is not born, a woman is a social construct. It means when male and female, when they are born in the society, as we must know in the very beginning that gender is a different thing, and sexuality is a different thing. Gender is considered to be a social construct, and how this gender is constructed. So Ajit Singh ji, I'm good. How are you? I'm sorry, I won't be answering you people, because then the lecture will be disturbed. So you can understand my restrictions over here. So this Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar, these are two writers who are very famous for writing the book Mad Woman in the Attic. Mad Woman in the Attic is directly linked with Jane Eyre, this novel written by Charlotte Bronte. Let me talk about that social castration first of all, and penis envy. I'm in my today's lecture, I'll be talking about two terms. You can write down these terms and you can study them on Google. First is social castration. Social castration. Castration means, castration is a word. We also know this term as a circumcision also. And it means the mutilation of the sexual organ. So Penis envy means these psychologists, whether it is Jung or Lacan or Sigmund Freud, about whom we have already talked in the last or previous lectures, they say that because of the penis, because of the penis, this male, he feels powerful in the society, and a woman that is the counterpart of male, when she gets to realize that she doesn't have this male sexual organ, there is a kind of blank space over there, then she feels this we have to study. I cannot directly drag this lecture towards that direction, but there is a term penis envy. It means a woman is a secondary one, a woman is a devoid character, a woman is someone who is negative, and because she does not have that power of penis, then she feels at lost, and then she starts doing envy with the counterpart that is male. So who has done the major study in this? Then let me read allow me to read something from the book. There is a writer, Nancy Chodorow, Chodorow. I'll be reading out something because without reading, I won't be able to do justice with this topic. She has talked about mother-daughter. Before I read something, let me talk about that. When we see that somewhere in our families, we see that mostly males, like our brothers in families, mostly they have a sense of freedom in them, and women, like our sisters, we see that in the same family, what happens psychologically, what happens that a woman, when she grows up, becomes a nurturing figure. A woman becomes a figure, who is very caring, one who automatically feels like she should not raise her voice, and she learns automatically, like that she has to adjust. So Nancy Chodorow, in her book Reproduction and Mothering, the book published in 1978, sorry, in the 20th century. In this book, Reproduction and Mothering, she has given answers to these questions from the psychological point of view, that actually what happens to a woman. And I'm reading from the book. Those who have this book can reread it. Pramod K. Nair's book I'm reading. I found it very important. First, Chodorow argues that mothers experience their daughters as their doubles, as an extension of their own life. Because when a boy is born in a family, a son is born, because the mother feels that because of his penis, his sexual organ, he is a bit different. So that kind of bond is not developed. This is a study of Chodorow, Nancy Chodorow. Daughters therefore find it difficult to form their own identities because they have a strong tendency to identify and to develop intimacy and care with the mother. Because when a daughter is born, daughter is more close to a mother, because somewhere she feels that she's of my kind. Hence, the core identity of women, which Chodorow identifies, a narcissism, a lack of self-control, weak ego boundaries, proceeds from the inability to discover autonomy from their mothers. It means because a girl, when she's born in the family, she does not feel that she's different from mother. So she feels a bit attached, and she does not go out from the circle of mother. And then she does not feel a kind of autonomy, a kind of freedom. And a boy does. That is the psychological reason she establishes, she argues. And therefore the daughter turns to the father, who represents the outside world. For Chodorow, this phase is when the daughters become aware of their social privilege of possessing a phallus. Phallus is a term used for penis. Phallic symbol, PHALLUS, phallus, is a term we very much use in the feminist psychology, where, because as I told you earlier, that Sigmund Freud somewhere has dealt with the male sexual organ everywhere, and you must have seen the thumbnail. Thumbnail means the kind of photograph on my YouTube upload of the first lecture of psychology, psychoanalytic criticism. There is a cigar. So, how many of you have really understood the meaning of cigar there? Because Sigmund Freud said that these things are anything which is long or prolonged, or say having some say vertical directions, they are somewhere in a subconscious way, they are associated with the male sexual organ, that is phallic symbol. They are phallic symbols, and they are symbols of power. So, cigar. So it is said that during his lifetime, in Freud's lifetime, people started looking at anything which is long with penis, or say with phallus. So sometimes, in a joking manner, one day Sigmund Freud was having a cigar, and then people started his friend circle in his friend circle. When people looked at him with suspicious eyes, then he had said that sometimes cigar is a cigar. So you can understand that how male sexual organ is somewhere, not somewhere, in literature till today we associate anything which is long and having some dimensions with the male sexual organ, we associate it with patriarchy or male chauvinism. For example, Qutub Minar. For example, Vijay Stamp. You have seen that wherever these patriarchal endeavors of power, wherever they want to show that they are powerful, they create a long minaret kind of thing, which is a kind of symbolic representation of their phallic symbol, that they are males and they can do everything. But women, because they don't have this, so they feel a kind of envy, a kind of jealousy. So this is the base of feminist psychoanalysis. And I'll be allow me to read something more from this book. Shifting focus briefly, Shodorov proposes that for boys, masculine identity is also achieved through a relationship with the mother. It is the mother who recognizes and emphasizes gender difference. As I earlier said in the starting of this session, that it is mother, who establishes a kind of difference between male and female in the family, between the sons and the daughters. The mother encourages the boy to discover autonomy from her, because she is not of her like. Hello, Neeraj, how are you? Because a mother feels that the boy who is born does not have a penis, so anatomically also he is different. So she lets loose that boy to search for her own his own autonomy. So the writer says that this is because the mothers experience their sons are separate from themselves, in sharp contrast to their relationship with their daughters, where they do not see the daughters as a separate. So this is the base, that mothers feel that psychologically and anatomically, that the daughters are very much linked to them physically, and boys are not linked to them, and for that phallic symbol, that is the male sexual organ, is responsible. Thus, for Shodorov, the Oedipus complex and the relationship with the father work differently for boys and girls. Girls who stay attached in a narcissistic relationship with the mother develop emotionally through relationships, because she's always attached with mother, because mother feels that she's of my kind. So a girl develops psychologically a kind of self-love, which is termed as narcissism. And that is the reason, I think, I cannot exactly say that, because in every this field of criticism, we always have writers, and then there are writers who are cutting across their points. So but up to an extent, when this writer Pramod K. Nair, when he chose to write about feminist psychoanalysis, he did not talk about sexual politics. That book, he did not talk about sexual politics, or he did not talk about Simone de Beauvoir, or he did not talk about Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar, but he directly came to Nancy Shodorov, because it is considered that Nancy Shodorov has really come to the exact point in establishing the kind of psychology which a girl develops in a family, and mother is responsible for giving her that psychology, which is the psychology of a caring girl, of some emotionality, and nurturing, and boys discover their masculine gender through independence. So this is all about Nancy Chodorow through her book Reproduction and Mothering. Then I will also be able to talk about Juliet Michel, one another writer. You should today search that what Michel talks about. So far in this lecture, I have talked about 4 and 5 writers who have contributed towards feminist psychoanalysis. Let me revise them. Let me repeat them for the late joiners. They are Kate Millett through her book Sexual Politics, Simone de Beauvoir through her book The Second Sex, where she says that a woman is not born, a woman is a social construct. And then Sandra Gilbert and Susan Goubart through their book Mad Woman in the Attic, and fourth writer is Nancy Chodorow, and the fifth writer is Juliet Michel. With these writers, let me move towards Harold Bloom. Friends, I'll be talking about Freudian revisionism. There is a term we use in psychoanalysis, that is Freudian revisionism. As I told you that Freud started psychoanalysis, but that doesn't mean that his ideas were accepted everywhere without questioning. All the ideas given by Sigmund Freud were questioned and re-questioned, but somewhere almost all the writers have taken material from him, and then they restructured their own understanding. For example, in my third video, I discussed the concept of Laka, where he has considered that unconscious is structured like language. So today I'll be talking about Harold Bloom. You can write about Harold Bloom, and let me remind you that they have asked us a question about the anxiety of influence, that who has used this term anxiety of influence. Actually, Anxiety of Influence is a book written by Harold Bloom. It was published in 1984. The book is very costly. I don't have this book in my library, but I read this book when I was a student of my MPhil from the departmental library. And let me talk about 2 other books of this writer, Harold Bloom, that is Agon. It was published in 1993, and A Map of Misreading, 1975. They have asked us questions on all these 3 books. Now, what I am here to talk about Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom talks about, first of all, let me clear to you the concept of the anxiety of influence. What is the exact meaning of anxiety of influence? Anxiety of influence means anxiety, you all know. Anxiety, if you search, if you become, a standard reader for becoming to become a professor, you will see that Laka has talked about a lot about. He has written a book also on anxiety. It's a psychological thing. Anxiety comes, when we are unable to fulfill the lack in our life. And Harold Bloom has talked about a different perspective of anxiety of influence. What he sees, he has taken material from Sigmund Freud, and he says that when a new writer, suppose I'm a writer, suppose, or say I'm a video maker, and suppose there is somebody who is already a successful YouTuber, and he has made YouTubes with some greater content, and suppose I'm a newcomer, then whenever I start making a new video, and suppose I have already watched his videos, then I will be feeling a kind of anxiety, because that person, I'm not talking about age, I'm simply talking about that somebody who is ahead of me is a father figure for me. Like suppose a writer, like suppose I'm a writer and I start writing something, then I always feel that whatever I want to convey has already been written, or say already have been discussed by that particular writer, and whether I will be giving something new or not. So that writer is a threat on me, a kind of father figure. And this father figure, as we study in Sigmund Freud and then in Lacan also, that a child is all a kind of Oedipus complex is there, that a boy is always afraid of his father, because he considers, he psychologically, subconsciously he considers that father figure is the only or the first master of mother. And suppose I am associated with mother, and my father will come and detach me from my mother. So this kind of this triangle This triangle of relationships is used by Harold Bloom in the case of writing. And let me read something so that a new writer or a new YouTuber or anyone who is new feels a kind of anxiety, he feels a kind of fear, is scared of whether he will be able to produce something new or not. So let me read something. Bloom begins with the assumption that all poets start their career with an anxiety. This anxiety is a father threat that earlier poets who come to symbolize the father have already done all there is to be done. The newcomer or the latecomer poet cannot escape the unconscious threat of the father poet. The younger poet fears castration. So here also the concept of castration comes. As I earlier said in the same class, that castration means removal of the penis, or say actually in circumcision and castration, circumcision is a different term and castration is a different term, but they are interchangeably used. So here, hence the younger poet embarks on means he starts a process of rereading the earlier poets in order to survive. He must deal with the Oedipal threat of the father so that he can write. So, anxiety of influence, the term which has entered into the lexicon today, anywhere if you attend some standard lectures of literary theory, and I remind you, those who are serious students watching me right now, that in out of 10 units we have in our net course today, 3 units are meant for literary criticism, theory, and like things. So, and suppose we expect 10 questions from 1 unit, then almost 30 questions are waiting for you. And let me also inform you that on my blog you can search in my website, on my website mukeshparik.com. There is a blog, and yesterday I uploaded a very small 2 quizzes I uploaded, so you can just go there and solve the quizzes. If you don't know the answers, you can contact me on WhatsApp, and so that we can discuss, because today this is the last video in the series of psychoanalytic criticism. Tomorrow we'll be starting with the new thing. So let me continue with this now, that I hope you understand the anxiety of influence. Then let me talk about psychic defense also. Misreading is thus a psychic defense against the father. Misreading means to say, suppose you have read something, and then you find that whatever you read is not the exact thing. It must have some different meaning. Then it is a kind of defense mechanism. As I yesterday talked in yesterday's class, I talked about so many different terms like condensation, displacement. And there I talked about this kind of defense mechanism. In displacement we have defense mechanism. So friends, this is all about this lecture. Let me add something which I started to talk about, but I have planned to make another video, that is post-structuralist psychoanalysis. There are two particular French doyens of critics, I call them. They are Giles and Guattari. They have written a book, Anti-Oedipus. The book was published in 1983, Anti-Oedipus. If you go and read this book, you will find something about, you can't read the book, then you can go and just search the summary of this book or the major ideas regarding this book. You'll come to know about one thing, that Deleuze and Guattari, what they're talking about in post-structuralist psychoanalytic criticism, they're talking about, they say that they further the idea of unconscious given to us by Lacan. Lacan say that unconscious is about lack, about absence, and what Deleuze and Guattari say in Anti-Oedipus, they say that how can unconscious be a void of something? How can it be something which is hollow? Because when you say that it is about lack, because lack creates desire. So it means unconscious creates desires, and then they keep linking it with the late capitalism, that it is our unconscious, which have created all this modern world. and this kind of capitalism, these kinds of, all the kind of say development around us is all related to our unconscious. So that is again a very elaborate topic. We require some time to discuss Deleuze and Guattari, these two doyens of critics. Uh, Let me end this lecture. There is another book they have written, A Thousand Plateaus. Why I'm mentioning the books and the writers? Because at least once you watch my video, at least you will be aware about the books and the names of these writers. Because I have seen that good students, when they at least get a hint of certain thing through some videos, they can start their studies. So at least you can start your studies, because as I in my first video in the series of psychoanalysis, I said that psychoanalysis is no more relevant. But I think I take my words back, and I say that when I think about Deleuze and Guattari, and I talk about this Thousand Plateau and this Anti-Oedipus, these books are very recent books, and I think in academia, in universities, in all the departments, these writers are creating a trouble for the scholars, and they are studied a lot. And in this small video, in this small class, I discussed almost the remaining writers. In my next lecture, I'll come with either post-structuralism or structuralism or feminist criticism. But wait for me, I'll certainly be there with you, as I promised you all. Thank you very much. Namaskar.